Let's talk about the elderly woman who spent 5 days with her husband's dead body in the same house until it began decomposing. A story that is currently sending shockwaves to a lot of people, as well as it dividing the internet. Because you see, many people are having opinions regarding this story. Different opinions, and we are going to talk about it. But what is more shocking is the fact that when the authorities came to retrieve this man's dead body, that is already decomposing by the way, they discovered something else in the house. Something that they did not bargain for. Something that was even more shocking than the dead body itself. But before we continue, please give this video a thumbs up and then let us know what country you're watching from. And also, you can support your boy by subscribing to this channel. It doesn't take anything. Just click the subscribe button and then you can also turn on notification bell should there be any future videos. You'll be the first to get notified. Now, this story happened in a neighborhood in Zengeza 3, Zimbabwe, where an elderly woman, probably in her 70s, was arrested by the police in Zimbabwe after the decomposing body of her late husband was found 5 days after he had died in her house. When the discovery was made, it so happened that a lot of her neighbors had always had suspicion about her movements, about her behavior, and about the things she might be hiding in her house. Many of the neighbors knew her. They knew that she was married to a notable man in the neighborhood named Gideon, but soon after her marriage, her husband fell ill, had a stroke, and was confined in a wheelchair. They also knew she had children, about 5 children, some of which were said to be in the UK. Some had died, but around the last few decades, she had one of her sons living with her. Some sources said she had 2 of her sons living with her. However, these same neighbors furthermore claimed that they stopped seeing Mahala's husband and children since 2010. Well, some neighbors specified that they stopped seeing the children around 2010, but they stopped seeing the husband around 2014. And since then, only Gogo had been seen coming in and out of the compound. And she never had visitors. Nobody went to her house. She didn't go to anyone's house. They would see her come out, go to church, go to the hospital. She just did a lot of the activities herself. And that was how it was for over 10 years. 10 whole years. They didn't see her husband. They didn't see her children. They didn't see relatives. No one. Nothing. It was almost as if she was really hiding something in her house. Although some sources claim that there was a time they heard one of her child passed, one of her child died, but she didn't let them into the compound to hold a memory. In fact, it was said she kept it on the wraps. Even for people who had heard about it, this woman would not have told anyone. They said she had a private, secret funeral service for the deceased child and did not allow anybody, anyone in the compound, even his friends or well-wishers, to come, console her or wish her well or come stay with her in that period of time. But that passed. Take note of that child that she lost, because we are going to come back to it. Just like I said, a lot of people are speculating widely regarding the discovery that was made in this woman's house. That same period of time, the neighbors only saw Mahala. She was the only one they kept seeing, and that was it. Did they have questions? Maybe they did, but it was said that Gogo Mahala was a very strict woman who really was stern and did not like to associate. So even if you had questions, what were you going to do? Walk up to her to ask her, where are your husbands and your children? She would most likely have given an answer that was soothing for the moment, but maybe not satisfying. However, all this changed on the 22nd of November 2022, when everything that this woman was hiding in her house, in her home, in her yard, in her closet came to light. Now, it's not clear how the discovery was made. Some sources claim that Gogo herself was the one who went to meet the authorities to come get her husband's decomposing body. Because clearly, no matter how good of a hider, no matter how many secrets she's hiding in her house, hiding a dead body would be a very tricky one for her, because they have their ways of letting everyone know that they are there. So apparently she probably couldn't have continued managing the deceased husband's body. And when it got out of hand, it was said she reached out to the authorities to come get the body. However, there's another source that is claiming that a locksmith, some sort of locksmith or carpenter, was called and hired by Gogo herself to come fix something. And it was that locksmith that came to the compound and came to do what he was asked to do. And upon being in Gogo's house, the locksmith began perceiving the offensive odor. And this is not a child, this is a grown man that could tell that something had died. So apparently the locksmith was done with the job, and it was said after he was done, he went out to the neighbors, and I guess maybe some of the neighbors were curious as to, Gogo Mahala let you into a house. What happened? What was it? Or either that or he came out a little perplexed because he had his suspicion that something was really off in the house. So it was said that it was this locksmith that alerted the neighbors that something was going off in Gogo's house. And I want to assume that maybe around this period, Gogo Mahala herself realizes that this locksmith has known something, and clearly she used the opportunity to just call the right authorities so that the neighbors don't come snooping into her house. And the reason could be that she was hiding way more than a dead body in the house. So the authorities came, the ambulance came to evacuate the dead man's body from his home. And in the video, you could see Mahala wearing a nose mask, talking to some of the paramedics, which clearly indicates that there is a chance that she's cooperating with them, and there's also a possibility that she called them into her home to evacuate her husband's decomposing body. So during this process of evacuating late Gideon's body, they heard a noise in the house. The people, the authorities, they were hearing something coming from the ceiling. Some sources claim that she tried to tell them, that's a rat, but Lord have mercy, that must be one big rat, because the noise was consistent and heavy. So out of concern, they told her that they would have to check it, to see if this is something that could endanger your life. After all, you're the only person living here. Your husband is dead. You want to make sure that whatever is up there is not a snake, is not a monster, is not somebody that have come to intrude to get you or hurt you. It was said she tried to convince them otherwise, not to check what was up in the ceiling, but they did anyway. And when they went up to the ceiling with a flashlight, they saw a fully grown adult man, covered in beards, emaciated, and looking unkempt, with overgrown fingernails. It looked like an homeless man that had been lost in the wilderness in the middle of nowhere in an island for many years. Those island movies where we see somebody get lost in the island that is far from humanity, and they grow beards, grow fingernails, and turn into some kind of Moses part the sea looking person. And that was what was discovered. Immediately, it was said that this said human being in the ceiling tried to attack these people and tried to fight back. The authorities, the police was called, and the person was brought out of the ceiling, handcuffed, and brought out to the public. It was at this moment that everyone, the neighbors, saw someone that looked familiar despite looking different, unkempt. The person that had been brought out from the ceiling was Gogo Mahala's son, Grant, who is, at the time of being brought out, 39 years old, almost 40 years old. And neighbors began recalling that the last time they saw Grant was in 2010, almost 12 years ago. Many of them thought he had died. Some even thought he was in South Africa, not knowing that this boy was living in his mother's roof all this while. When Gogo Mahala was questioned, she said that, that is her son, but he's mentally deranged, that he's possessed and he's dangerous, that evil spirits are possessing him, and that was why she kept him there. And, it was many years ago when she went to a church, and the pastor told her that her family was being attacked by evil spirits and that she needed to lock her son up and put her son somewhere where the demons could be cast out. And apparently she said that she has been doing that for all this while that he had been in the ceiling. She kept him there to help him manage his evil spirit. And that was kind of like what Gogo explained. Although it was said the boy was allowed to speak, and he gave his own side of the story after a while, kind of trying to make it look like, the same thing, that it was the mom that put him there all the while, because they thought he was possessed. So this discovery changes the entire story. And just as Gogo's husband's body was being evacuated from the house, her son, Grant, and herself were taken into police custody for further questioning, because as it turns out, this was bigger than what they imagined. Now the story is currently unfolding. Gogo has been taken to court, and she's being charged for holding her husband's body for 5 days and not reporting it to the police. She's in court currently facing that. From the last we heard of her, as at the time of making this video, was that while in court, she took an excuse to demand to get a lawyer, and at a point she went to the bathroom to pee, and a female prison guard followed her because they suspected she wanted to do something weird. And just as they suspected, found out that this woman wanted to do something weird. She went to the bathroom, she brought out a handbag, and brought out fingernails from it. And those fingernails happened to be her son's own, Grant. And when the guard saw her and asked her, "What are you doing with that?" she panicked and just gave it to her like that. So nobody knew what she wanted to do, whether or not she wanted to use it to cut herself or hurt herself. But it was also said that now that they've known that her husband, Mr. Gideon, has passed, the neighbors want to, hold a memorial for him in his home, but she's ordering and giving commands and telling everybody in that neighborhood to not dare step into her compound or step into her house, that they shouldn't dare. Which is kind of making it look like she's hiding something more there. I feel like there might be something else she might be hiding. But back to the story. This case is making a lot of people talk. And we need to get to what people are saying, especially people from the place, the neighbors, people from Zimbabwe. Now, the son being kept there in the ceiling is raising questions. A group of people have praised Mahala Gogo for handling her family, protecting her child, knowing that her child is mentally deranged and didn't want to put him in the public eye because people will be mean and rude and people may laugh at her and he may not get the help that he needed. And also taking care of her husband who was in a wheelchair. Even though they had not seen him since 2014, it was confirmed that he had only died 5 days prior to the November of the 22nd, which means that she had been taking care of him all the while. Besides, he's 80 years old, and a lot of people are saying that, yes, this woman, despite having secrets in her home, she was most likely handling her family herself, taking care of the child and taking care of her husband, despite their situation. Because half the time she was always going out to the hospital to get drugs for the man. He was most likely sick, and also maybe get drugs for the son. So those are a group of people who have taken a side for Gogo Mahala. Now, the other group of people are like, the woman is evil, that she had been able to control her husband and her son. That how did she lock up her son in the roof and hold her husband captive from the rest of the world, from his friends, from his own family? They are blaming her and hoping that she suffers the full extent of the law, especially for her son. Like, how does she put her son in the roof of the house for nearly 12, 14 years? How? So a group of people have said that about her. So we now know the two sides of the comments, the two sides of the opinion being held, being heard regarding this Gogo Mahala's case. However, there are a group of people giving their theories, because even I myself, I want to be in the middle of this. I want to be among this group of people giving theories, because something is off. This young man was aggressive when the police came. He was trying to fight them, which meant that he probably didn't want to come out from there. He did not seem as though he was held captive by the mom. Nothing was said about him being in chains. He wasn't tied, he wasn't chained. He wasn't bound hands and leg. And mind you, his mother is very old. And mind you, he's very young and he's a man. And he can burst out from that ceiling, push the mother away and run if he wanted to. Even if he was held in chains, even if he was bound, he is still a man that can burst out from that ceiling. For how many years he has been there? No. I don't believe Gogo single-handedly kept that boy there. I have a feeling that he too knew what was going on and he too chose to be up there. How does an old woman carry a full-grown man? Even at the time they stopped seeing him, he was a full-grown adult. In 2010, he wasn't a child. He was still a grown adult that could fight his mother and his father in a wheelchair. And for him to go up in that ceiling, Gogo could not have carried him up like that. He would have gone up himself. If it was a pit or somewhere in a room, I can understand and see the possibility of the mother being able to do it. But as far as it's in the ceiling and in the roof, this young man, Grant, this young man, Grant, definitely had a hand in himself being there. And a lot of people are saying it. A lot of people are pointing it out, which is leading to a theory that I read somewhere, that they believe Grant was the one who may have killed his brother that had died that period of time that the family kept it a wraps due to his mental state, and he most likely caused the death of his brother. People are speculating. They had reasons to, but I really don't know the specific reason or the details surrounding how his brother died. But they are saying that he may have had a hand in it, and he may have been trying to hide all the while. And that explains why he was in the roof all this time, because he was hiding from the law. It looks like hiding to me. It doesn't even look like he stayed in the ceiling all this while. I feel like when the coast is clear, he comes down, eats food, spend time with the mom, have his fingernails cut, maybe not get a haircut because clearly who's going to cut his hair? And then maybe when she needs to leave the house, or maybe when she needs to go away, or maybe when she might expect a few guests or visitor, she would climb back, he would go back up to hide there because he was clearly hiding. That is what it looks like to me. That is what it seems like to me. I don't believe this woman single-handedly held her child captive. If anything, this might just be a wild case of a mental health crisis that is going on around in the family, that she is suffering, that her husband may have suffered, and that the son too may have suffered. Because I remember a story that I learned something from about a mad family, a family of a husband, wife, and children who were seemingly mad somewhere in Nigeria at the time. However, when the case was investigated, it turned out that it was only the husband that was mentally deranged. That the rest of the family who were following him around in rags, with unkempt hair, in begging in the streets, despite having a home, they were all normal. But they suffered from a mirror kind of psychological effect. I don't know how it was explained, but according to the doctor that analyzed the story, it was explained that since the man, as the head of the house, or since the man was having a mental health crisis, the children and the wife mirrored it. They just picked it up on it, not because they were mentally mad, but because it's a family and nothing seemed odd. At a point, all the odd things that the man was doing just made sense to them and became a norm, that they were all fine. And I want to believe that this could have been the case for Gogo Mahala and her family. I feel like maybe the son is suffering from a mental health that picked up on her, even having been told that her child is having evil spirits, and she too believed it. The husband may have believed it, and that was it. That was it. That could have been it. This is just a whole explosion of mental health case that I think need to be investigated medically as well. Gogo herself locking her son up in the roof, I don't believe that she did it single-handedly. That man was not chained or handcuffed. So as far as this story goes, it's hard to know if Mahala would be charged for, her son being held captive also. I don't think she should. I feel like the boy knows more than he's saying. I feel like he too was in on it. And if anything, he just might be suffering from a mental situation that might need an evaluation. So guys, this is the story. This is the weird story of Gogo Mahala from Zimbabwe that is getting a lot of people talking. I would like to hear your thoughts on this. I would like to know where you stand. Do you think this woman was meaning well for the family, or was she literally torturing the family like people said? Do you believe that she was the one totally involved in preventing her husband and her son from seeing the rest of the world? Mind you, they said none of her family members showed up in court, none of her children from the UK, even though some sources are claiming her children in the UK have all died. I don't know, the sources are just multiple, but nobody showed up, nobody came to court to stand by her. She's hoping to get a lawyer to, defend it. She'll most likely have to explain why she kept her husband's body for 5 days after he died. 5 whole days. I mean, this goes to show you that she too might not be mentally okay as well. I feel this is all a mental situation here. Since she's already believing in evil spirits and all of that, I think this is everything that may have been affecting the family. Maybe her husband also may have been affected, thinking if he come outside, people would kill him soon enough. And, these things usually take a hold on people's mind. Because if he wanted to reach out to the world, I'm sure, he would have called. I'm sure he also had families or friends or people who wanted to see him, but it's just, I guess maybe when you grow older, the world forgets about you. I'm not surprised that this man was in his house for over 10 years and he was not seen or heard from, whereas he was living in his house, alive, eating, feeding, and just being indoors. It's really a weird story. So let me know what you think. Do you think Gogo Mahala is single-handedly the villain in this story? Or do you think she was also trying to manage her family the best way she could? knowing that she would be ignored, knowing that she wouldn't get the help that she needed from the government or from the right authorities, and she single-handedly took care of it the best way she knew how. Even if it meant putting her child in a ceiling, even if it meant having to do the chores, going to the market, getting their drugs for them for over 10 years. I mean, at least she kept her husband alive all the while. And she kept her son alive. Maybe malnourished, but I personally don't think that she had bad intentions. I don't feel so. I feel she's just a victim of a situation that she found herself in, no matter how mentally disturbing it might be. I don't think she was like a puppet controlling all of this. I don't think so. But you guys let me know what you think. Don't forget to let me know where you're watching from. Don't also forget to comment your thoughts. The story is currently developing, so should there be any update, I'll be happy to update you guys. So stay subscribed to this page and turn on notification button for future videos. Thank you guys for watching, and you can also check out my channel for other true crime videos and let me know what you think. Thank you.